in downtown Kinston, North Carolina. And we welcome you to our weekly Bible study. Today, we are going to be studying chapter 20 in 1 Samuel. This has to do with the friendship between David and Jonathan. This section of the Bible is often misunderstood and misused, and we're going to go into the reasons why. But anyway, I just want you to know that this is a very difficult time. What's happened is that Saul has lost his legitimacy as the king of Israel. And understand, when they talk about Israel, they're not talking about what we consider Israel, the nation with North and South united. They were still very, very tribal, okay? And Saul was from northern tribe, okay? David was from Bethlehem, or he was from the area around Bethlehem, and so he's with closer allied with Judah, southern tribe. So there's still a lot of divisions that are going on. But when you see a reference to Saul was king of Israel, that does not mean that Saul was actually the king of North and South. You don't see that happening until David really does the unification. But anyway, let's get into this. Saul is the king. Jonathan is his son, the crown prince. David is in the court of Saul. He is Saul's armor bearer, which means he's like the top military commander. And he also is a great musician. And so Saul has used him to soothe his troubled soul with playing the lute. And so we'll just keep going. David fled from Naioth in Ramah. Saul had just tried to kill David in his court. He threw a couple of spears at him. He came before Jonathan and said, "What have I done? What is my guilt? And what is my sin against your father that he is trying to take my life?" Now, understand, David is the one who commissioned this. So, after he becomes king. So just bear that in mind. But when he says, "What have I done?" Samuel anointed David to be the king instead of Jonathan. In fact, instead of Saul. So as long as David's around, there's a disruption in the heredity to the throne. David is, just by the fact that he has been anointed, is a traitor to the throne. Okay? So when he says, "What is my guilt?" understand that David has not done anything directly against Saul. He hasn't attacked him. He hasn't badmouthed him. He hasn't done any of this stuff with Saul. Okay? The hostility towards David is not because of what David said or did. It's because of who David is. Okay? So when he says, "What have I done?" well, he really hasn't done anything. He said to him, "Far from it, you shall not die. My father does nothing, either great or small, without disclosing it to me. Why should my father hide this from me? Never. But David also swore, 'Your father knows well that you like me.' And he thinks, 'Do not let Jonathan know this, or he will be grieved. But truly, as the Lord lives, and as you yourself live, there is but a step between me and death.'" So David understands the risk. Then Jonathan said to David, "Whatever you say, I will do for you." David said to Jonathan, "Tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit with the king at meal, but let me go so that I may hide in the field until the third evening. If your father misses me at all, then say, 'David earnestly asked leave of me to run to Bethlehem, his city, for there is a yearly sacrifice for all the family.' If he says, 'Good,' it will be well with your servant. But if he is angry, then know that evil has been determined by him. Therefore, deal kindly with your servant, for you have brought your servant into a sacred covenant with you. But if there is guilt in me, kill me yourself." He'd rather die at the hand of a friend. Okay? "Why should you be your father?" So what he's saying is that you're at risk for being my friend. So if I've actually done something wrong, then you kill me and then your father will know that you're loyal to him. So David is looking out for Jonathan's interest in this offer. Jonathan said, "Far be it from you. If I knew that it was decided by my father that evil should come upon you, would I not tell you?" Then David said to Jonathan, "Who will tell me if your father answers you harshly?" Jonathan replied to David, "Come, let us go out into the field." So they both went out into the field. Now understand, they are developing a plot. Jonathan has become a spy. And in some case, and from Saul's perspective, he would be considered a double agent. Okay? Because Saul wants Jonathan to tell him what's going on with David, right? And David wants him to tell him what's going on with Saul. We had an interesting situation like that in the Revolutionary War. The General Lafayette, French general under Washington, almost beloved like a son, was in the Virginia and Carolina. He was in charge of the Continental Army, the Patriots, in the Virginia and North Carolina areas. And he didn't have enough troops to really do anything against Cornwallis, but he wanted to know what Cornwallis was up to. Well, there was a guy in Virginia who owned a slave. His name was James, and he didn't have a last name because he was a slave. And so James was educated. He could read and write. So his master sent him to Lafayette to be a servant to Lafayette. And this guy was also supplying the Patriots. Okay. So he sent his slave over there as a way of ingratiating himself to the commander who'd be ordering supplies from him. Okay, so it's kind of a, hey, let me do a nice thing for you. So he sent James over there. James is smart, really smart. Lafayette hates slavery, despises slavery. So he says to James, "Look, you're a really smart guy. I've got a job for you." And he says, "What's that?" And he says, "I want you to be a servant to Cornwallis." So James acts like he is a runaway slave because the British are offering freedom to anybody who comes over their side. And he goes into the camp of Cornwallis. And Cornwallis says, "You're a really smart guy. I'd like you to go to Lafayette and bring me reports on what Lafayette's doing." So James is going back and forth between these two camps, which is not a hard thing to do because the lines are pretty fluid, okay? So he reports things on Lafayette that are true, but because of the timing, not quite actionable, okay? And he reports to Lafayette that Cornwallis is getting frustrated and needs to be resupplied, and he plans to go to Yorktown in order to be resupplied. Well, that's how they found out that he was going to Yorktown, because we had this double agent going on. After the war, he sent back to his master. Lafayette sends a letter saying, "You need to free this guy," but he didn't. And so Lafayette wanted Washington to free him. James actually had to go to Congress and petition for his freedom. And he finally got it late in life. And he, after a while, was able to free his family. He died up in Virginia. So anyway, don't know where he's buried, but they're looking. They want to find James's thing. Saw a reenactment of James while I was at Williamsburg. It's very interesting. So anyway, Jonathan is a double agent. Okay. So when they start saying, "What have I done? I haven't done anything." Yeah, you have. You're still doing it. Okay. Jonathan said to David, by the Lord, the God of Israel, when I have sounded out my father about this time tomorrow on the third day, if he is well disposed towards David, shall I not then send and disclose it to you? But if my father intends to do you harm, the Lord do so to Jonathan, and more also, if I do not disclose to you and send you away so that you may go in safety. So This plot is so that he's going to sound out Saul, find out how Saul really feels, and if it's good news, then he's going to bring David back to the court. If it's bad news, he is not going to let Saul kill him, which is treason. Okay, because David is a threat to the throne. So Jonathan is willing to commit treason against his father. So they both went to the field. Jonathan said to David, "By the Lord, the God of Israel, when I have sounded out my father about this time tomorrow on the third day, if he is well disposed." Okay, Okay, got it. "May the Lord be with you as he has been with my father." That's an interesting comment, because the big reason why Saul is depressed is that the Lord is with David and he's not with Saul. At least that's what Samuel said. "If I am still alive, show me the faithful love of the Lord, but if I die, never cut off your faithful love from my house, even if the Lord were to cut off every one of the enemies of David from the face of the earth." All right, this is a big deal. Okay, you're going to see this has a big effect in 2 Samuel after David is king. David is making a pledge. See, normally, if you had a previous king and there were still descendants who could claim the throne, what would you do with those descendants?
Kill him.
You kill them. Okay, so Jonathan is saying, because I'm doing this, understand, you and I have a deal, and the deal is, when you become king, you're not going to whack any of my family, okay? So that's how that's going. Thus Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying that, "May the Lord seek out the enemies of David." Jonathan made David swear again. Do it twice, buddy. For he loved him as he loved his own life. Okay. We're going to see a lot of sweetness between Jonathan and David. Bring this up to the 21st century and Gay Pride Month. And people who are trying to justify, people say, okay, homosexuality is condemned in the Bible. And then they say, well, what about Jonathan and David? Look how much these guys loved each other. And it looks passionate. It really does when you start reading this stuff. This has nothing to do with that topic. Okay? The people who are saying that are not people who have been in combat with comrades. They don't understand the bond that exists between people who've been in combat together and who've looked out for each other. And understand, combat back there was up close and personal. You know, David had a sling, but that wasn't very far, you know. And if you're going to whack a bunch of people, you needed to have swords and spears, and you needed to ram them into them personally. So, combat was extremely personal back then. You didn't do things from a distance.
To me, it was like a brotherly love.
Understand that.
They're about the same age, roughly.
Yeah.
Been
But-
through some things. I never read that. Thought it was.
Yeah, but that's how it's being read by people. See, this is the thing. If you have an agenda, you can find whatever you need to support it in the Bible. Okay? So that's what's going on.
Well,
Now,
I'll be honest with you, when I read it,
yeah,
and when I got to the part, he said he kissed him.
Yes.
And I thought to myself, oh my goodness. So I did see
And that's because you're
possibly,
living in the 21st
Well,
what is
century.
this, you know?
Judas kissed Jesus.
I'll just say,
I know.
kissing back then was just a sign of affection. Again, just the way I read it, it was a brotherly. I kissed my brother.
Yeah. It's like,
I hadn't done it lately, but I had. But it's kind of almost like they're family.
they are.
Brotherly.
Yeah, they
That's the way
consider.
I always read it. I never even thought it even came to mind.
And there are cultures like the Italian culture, the French culture, you know, where kisses are exchanged routinely between military men in front of everybody when an award is made, you know.
But what I was saying, I
Yeah.
could see how somebody could,
Yeah.
Yeah.
wow.
That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. But they're not taking into account the culture. When I went to Saudi Arabia, it was very, very common to see two men walking down the street holding hands. But that's part of their culture, okay? It doesn't mean, I mean, if they were ever detected to be homosexual, they'd be stoned to death. So it wasn't that. But I remember the Saudis were trying to convince their people that the American soldiers were really their friends, okay? So the Saudis had kind of a special looking camouflage on their uniforms. The Americans were slightly different camouflage on theirs. And they put up a big poster around Saudi Arabia showing two hands being held with one kind of camouflage and another kind of camouflage. Okay. And the Americans were like, what in the world? Homie, don't play that, you know? So, but you know, it's just a cultural difference. That's all it is, a cultural difference. And what is common in one culture is uncommon in another. And so that's just what it is. But to try and take this and morph it into a justification for homosexuality, or as a biblical example of that, that's a bridge too far. I'm sorry, that's just a stretch. It shouldn't be used that way. Anyway, so David hid himself in the field. Oh, women. Jonathan said to him, tomorrow's a new moon. You'll be missed because the place will be empty. On the day after tomorrow, you shall go a long way down to the place where you hid yourself earlier and remain beside the stone there. I will shoot 3 arrows to the side of it, as though I shot at a mark. Then I will say to the boy, saying, go find the arrows. If I say to the boy, look, the arrows are on this side of you, collect them, then you are to come. That means the whole coast is clear. For as the Lord lives, it is safe for you, and there is no danger. But if I say to the young man, look, the arrows are beyond you, then go, for the Lord has sent you away. As for the matter about which you and I have spoken, the Lord be between you and me forever. I love this part, okay? The Lord be between you and me forever. Now, you go back to Jacob and his father-in-law Laban, okay? And Jacob, as far as Laban's concerned, Jacob and his daughter have swindled him out of property rights and sheep and goats, okay? So Laban goes to try and confirm that Jacob has the family idols. Now, the family idols were the deeds to the property, because each piece of land had its own god, okay? So if you had the idol, that meant that you owned that property. So his daughter was the one who stole the idols. And I won't go into the details of how she hid it, but Laban suspected that she had them, but was restrained in doing a thorough search. So so he knows that they're guilty, and he's going to have to let Jacob and his daughters go, all right? Because they're going back to Jacob's homeland, to his family. So he says, the Lord watch between thee and me while we are absent. Remember that? Don't we say that often in church?
Yeah.
The Lord watch between. Okay, what it means is, if I see you again, I'll kill you. That's what it means. The Lord keep us apart. Like, hold me back, God, hold me back. Okay? While we're absent one from the other. But if we ever get together again, all bets are off. That's basically what Jacob was told by his father-in-law. So, but this is different, okay? Because this is more like a blessing. The Lord be between you and me forever.
And this says the Lord is witness between you and me.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, the Lord seals this deal. The Lord is sealing this deal. Okay, so you're not accountable. Okay. When I lead a couple in the wedding vows, okay, they say their vows and they say, in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit at the end of it, okay? Which means that they are not only accountable to each other. They're accountable to God for the maintenance of that relationship. That's what that means. Okay? And Jonathan's saying, you're not just accountable to me, you're accountable to God, because God is a witness that you made this vow. All right. So David hid himself in the field. When the new moon came, the king sat at the feast to eat. The king sat upon his seat, as at other times, upon the seat by the wall. Jonathan stood. Why would the king sit in a seat by the wall? Any idea? Especially a king that's a little bit paranoid.
Keeps his back to the wall.
He's got his back to go, right, nobody's sneaking up behind him. Okay. There you go.
He used to put glasses by a beer mug, so you're drinking a beer, you could watch people.
That's right. That's right. No big mugs. Okay. Upon the seat by the wall, Jonathan stood while Abner sat by Saul's side, but David's place was empty. Okay, Abner is his commander, and he's his uncle. And they're supposed to watch out for Saul during any public event. They are Secret Service. Okay. Saul did not say anything that day, for he thought, something has befallen him. He is not clean. Surely he is not clean. So he's trying to give an excuse why David wouldn't come to the banquet. Okay. And he says, well, if the if the guy was unclean, he didn't come to the banquet. So it could have been anything. There are any number of ways to become unclean that aren't necessarily sinful. Okay. It's just the way things happen. You could have touched a dead body or something. Okay, so he's saying, maybe there's that. But on the second day, the day after the new moon, David's place was empty. And Saul said to his son Jonathan, why has the son of Jesse, now he never calls him David, he calls him that son of Jesse. Okay. Why has the son of Jesse not come to the feast, either yesterday or today? Jonathan answered Saul, David earnestly asked leave of me to go to Bethlehem. He said, let me go, for our family is holding a sacrifice in the city, and my brother has commanded me to be there. So now if I have found favor in your sight, let me get away and see my brothers. For this reason, he has not come to the king's table. Whoa. All right. Are you allowed to lie in the Bible?
Certainly been done.
Yeah, that's what you told us before, that little lie's okay every now and then.
Well, this ain't white lie. This is treason lie.
Okay.
Understand? This is a cover story.
I guess it depends on your perspective.
So many things do.
I mean, when you got a halfway crooked king like Saul, why wouldn't you tell a white lie to protect someone?
We're going to see a lot more of this going on in 1st and 2nd Samuel. Okay? Is it wrong to lie to your enemy?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Well, from my former profession, I will tell you, it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine to lie to your enemy. It happens all the time in the Bible, all the time. And, and then they asked Jesus about bearing false witness. And he said, you should always tell the truth. Jesus had an interesting way of talking to people. There were times when he was asked a question where if he told the truth, they would arrest him. So he diverted it. He answered a question with a question. Okay? And then they couldn't answer the question. And they said, well, if you can't answer a stupid little question like this, what are you asking me about? Okay? So, but he didn't lie. Jesus didn't lie, but he did divert. That happened a lot.
Well, I told her this week, that's a beautiful dress.
Yes.
And she said, well, why did you say that? And I said, remember, Dennis said.
Yes.
It's okay.
It's okay. That's right. That's right. Every time a woman puts on makeup, it's a lie. Hey, every time I put on makeup, it was a lot. I tried to look like a tree or a bush or something. Okay. Then Saul's anger was kindled against Jonathan. He said to him, "You son of a rebel." Oh, these are terrible words. This is why this is not for kids, okay? This is an alert to parents. You got kids, move them away from this one, okay? "You son of a rebellious woman, do I not know that you have chosen the son of Jesse to your own shame and to the shame of your mother's nakedness?" Okay, see, this is bad. When you start talking about that. Okay, "For as long as the son of Jesse lives upon the earth, neither you nor your kingdom shall be established." Okay, here's the deal. He's saying that not only are you a creep from the day you were born.
And it's your mother's fault.
It's your mom's fault. That's exactly right. And he isn't saying a really nice thing about his mother either. Okay, he's blaming her as well. So your mama made you a creep, and I know it. Okay. Okay. "So as long as the son of Jesse lives upon the earth, neither you nor your kingdom shall be established." Now he's right about that. "Now send and bring him to me, for he shall surely die." Then Jonathan answered his father, Saul, "Why should he be put to death? What has he done?" But Saul threw his spear at him to strike him. So Jonathan knew that it was the decision of his father to put David to death. I guess that was a hint.
Yeah.
Jonathan sprang up from the table in fierce anger and ate no food on the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David and because his father had disgraced him. So he's going into a real funk over this whole situation. He has already chosen sides. Okay, "In the morning, Jonathan went out into the field to the appointment with David, and with him was a little boy. He said to the boy, 'Run and find the arrows that I shoot.' As the boy ran, he shot an arrow beyond him. When the boy came to the place where Jonathan's arrows had fallen, Jonathan called after the boy and said, 'Is the arrow not beyond you?'" Okay, that's the thing. Okay, so David, you can't come back. Jonathan called after the boy, "Hurry, be quick, and do not linger." So Jonathan's boy gathered up the arrows and came to his master, but the boy knew nothing, only Jonathan. And David knew the arrangement. Jonathan gave his weapons to the boy and said, "Go and carry them to the city." As soon as the boy had gone, David rose from beside the stone heap and prostrated himself with his face to the ground. He bowed 3 times, and they kissed each other and wept with each other. David wept the more. Then Jonathan said to David, "Go in peace, since both of us have sworn in the name of the Lord, saying, 'The Lord shall be between me and you, and between my descendants and your descendants forever.'" He got up and left, and Jonathan went into the city. Okay, that's where you see this like passionate goodbye between these two guys. Okay, don't read anything more into it than the fact that this is a friendship between these guys and a covenant that's been made between them, and they're going to honor it regardless of what is. The interesting thing is you see David prostrating himself before Jonathan, the crown prince, which means David personally does not want to usurp Jonathan's position. He still considers himself subservient to the royal family. Okay? So he is not taking actions against Saul except for this plot. Okay? But he's not doing anything to try and usurp the throne. And he's not trying to usurp the throne from Jonathan. What David is doing, and this is one of the sad things because they both know what's coming. David knows that if Jonathan survives Saul, that they're going to make Jonathan king. Okay? Now, the only way David becomes king is if Jonathan isn't around anymore. So they both know the meaning, and that's why there's such a depth of grief between the two of them.
Does David really want to be king? I mean, God has anointed David to be king, but David never.
David wants to be king.
He never comes across as saying, "This is what I want, and I will do whatever I can to get it."
That's the difference. He doesn't say, "I'll do whatever I can to do it." Okay? David's leaving this, according to the passage here, David is leaving this entirely in the hands of God. Okay? So, if God wants me to be king, I'll be king. Does David want to be king? Oh, yeah. Yeah, he really, really does. But there are certain things about being king that David is not willing to sacrifice in order to get Saul out of the way. Okay? Because God anointed Saul. We're going to see a lot of this coming up in the next couple of chapters. David shows tremendous restraint. So he's not interested in fomenting a coup. You know, if it's going to happen, it'll happen in God's good time, and that's where he leaves it. But does David want to be king? You bet he does. Very much. Okay, well, that's what I got for you, and we'll pick it up chapter 21 next time. And you're going to see Saul gets a little wrathful in in these next chapters. Okay, so God bless you. Have a wonderful day.
Okay, I had,
Thank you, Dennis.
I had an announcement. I went ahead and